Welcome to Mental Health Matters podcast with Seamus Corrie. This episode includes in-depth discussions on topics surrounding mental health, including experiences with depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, and feelings of despair. We recognize that these subjects may be sensitive to some of you, our listeners, and we encourage you to take good self-care. Please listen at your own pace and don't hesitate to pause or seek support if needed. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you might be in this wonderful world of ours. Welcome to Mental Health Matters. I'm your host, Seamus Corrie, Wellbeing consultant and mental health practitioner. And this series, Mental Health Matters, is all about real people's stories. It's all about real journeys and the process that people have taken in order to get to a place of recovery or going through a process of recovery in order to feel better about their mental health. I want to, thank all of you who have subscribed to my channel, have followed me on YouTube, have linked to my Spotify account to listen to these episodes. And I warmly embrace your feedback and your comments, and I thank you for those. If you've not already joined, connected, followed or subscribed, please do so today because you do not want to miss this particular episode. Today I have in front of me a wonderful guest. Somebody I've met along the road of mental health recovery, somebody who shared the road with me in August of this year, and two of us sat down with 11 other authors to complete a wonderful anthology of stories called the Rattled Anthology Series, Volume 11, the Mental Health Edition. The person I have in front of me today is a mum, is a warrior, is a survivor, is a thriver, and she's a winner. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, can I introduce you today to my great friend and sister from across the pond, Carolyn Smith. Carolyn, you're very welcome to Mental Health Matters this afternoon.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you, Seamus. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you. Meeting you has changed my life. It has given me, oh my gosh, I can't even begin to tell you the amazing gifts you've given me. First of all, your Guinness secret is working. I don't know if you can tell.
It's looking great. It's looking great. 2 Guinness a day, Caroline, is what's required.
Oh, I moved it to 4.
Okay, yeah, double dose. You're looking good. You're looking good. Real good.
Meeting you through the Rattled Awake series number 11 was one of the biggest gifts besides writing. And I am honored to be here today to talk about mental health and a little bit about like my journey and where I am and how I've moved forward and what I've done for mine. Mine involves a traumatic brain injury where we had a surgery to fix something in my brain, and unfortunately the doctor nicked it. And so when they nicked it, it ended up where there's just excess fluid. So in January of this year, they had to put in a shunt, which it kind of siphons it. And we've had some issues with trying to get the shunt the right way, as far as the amount that moves. And when it doesn't move enough, I can't move at all. I'm like, there's no way for me to physically, it shuts me down completely. Like I can't get up, I can't walk, I can't get out of bed. There's nothing I can do. So the only thing we end up doing is going to the emergency room, and what they do is they reset it. So there's a magnet that's actually up here. And then they go in, and the only way I could describe it is kind of like a cookie cutter, like Christmas. I always think about it as a Christmas cookie cutter treat. So the doctor goes in, and then they actually move it. and you can feel it moving. And so they go either up or they go down to try to get the flow of the brain fluid so that it keeps it where it's a steady flow.
Okay. Caroline, thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Um, can I say, first of all, your story on the Rattled Awake Anthology series blew me away. And it's one of the reasons why I wanted you on this podcast series to really show people that sometimes recovery isn't a bed of roses, right? And sometimes it's not, hey, presto, you're recovered. You're currently in a process of continuing recovery as a result of your injury. Um, take me back to when it all started for you. How how did you end up with a brain injury in the first place?
Well, the thing is that, and that's probably where it's going to be a little bit where you'll find out I'm just a little bit on the stubborn side.
Mm,
I it was let's see, it started in February of 2023.
yeah.
And the weird part was for me was I kept getting a lot of headaches, and I thought, oh, I'm thinking it's probably allergies or sinus or something. And so I would take a couple of sinus tablets, to get me through the day. And I was working from home, so that's how I first started noticing there was a problem. But then it seemed to escalate where I couldn't tell if I was real, like
Mm,
I was in a bubble, and everybody else was on the outside and I was on the inside, and I couldn't get to them. And I couldn't figure it out. And my head would get so bad that I would actually, I would lay down on the floor with my dogs because I couldn't get any type of of release. And then finally, I know, and this went on from February until July. July 11th of 2023, I think it was the 11th, was the day that I cracked. I mean, it was raining, it was thundering, it was lightning. It was storming pretty good that morning. And I looked at my husband and I said, I think I'm done. I'm just completely done. And so we went and we took my blood pressure, and it was 146 over 122.
wow.
So we ended up at the doctor's office. And then by the time we got to the doctor's office, it was like 180 over 150. So they're like, okay, you get to the hospital. Um, we ended up at the hospital, and of course I couldn't see because my head, everything was just so messed up. I didn't know what was happening. And one of the nurses came in and said, well, you might have a brain bleed. And I'm thinking, I have no idea. And in order to bring down the blood pressure, they gave me some medication, and I don't know what it was, Seamus. They gave me something, and I immediately went into like convulsions. I mean, immediately. And I'm my husband's sitting at the foot of the bed, and I'm having convulsions, and they're calling a code. So the code was to get, to make sure you weren't having a stroke.
Yeah.
And they if you can believe it, there was a line to get into the CT scan. That's how, I mean, it was an awful day. It wasn't a stroke. What they found out was they had to do an MRI, and my brain was actually hanging down 5.6 millimeters below like where it should be. So there
Wow.
was a piece of my brain that was being squished, and there was like the CSF fluid couldn't get down. And they kept telling me that I had to see a neurologist. And I'm like, why? What, can't you just fix this? I mean, what's the problem? I need to go back to work. I got things I've got to do.
Yeah.
And they never would make a commitment. I mean, it was really hard for me because I would just ask and see. I couldn't look at them because my head was in such bad shape. They were giving me let's see, what was it? Benadryl, Compazine, and it wasn't pain meds because I don't do pain meds. Pain meds for me are like off the table. So they said you have to go see a neurologist, and I mean, I was really angry because I'm like, this is ridiculous. I mean, come on, just fix whatever it is. That's how I felt about it. And eventually they said, okay, well, go to your primary care, get a referral. And I ended up doing that. And I was this close to just canceling that appointment that day.
Mm.
And because I was having a hard time, I couldn't see it, and my whole body, everything was just messed up. So when I got there, I went by myself, which was probably a bigger mistake, but it happened. I went within 4 to 5 minutes, the neurologist was in there. And he goes, you have a Chiari malformation #1. And I'm like, what? That's whatever. And he said, your brain is hanging down. And what we need to do is they have to go in the back. And what they'll do is they'll take out, there's a couple of bones on the back. So they'll take those bones out and then they're going to open it up so that the flow can get to your spinal fluid and all that. And I'm thinking, well, is this like life threatening? And they're like, well, it could kill you. I mean,
Wow.
it could kill you. You've got to get this fixed. And this is brain surgery. This isn't something that you want to mess around with.
Yeah.
So that was like July, and then August I saw the neurosurgeon. And September the 6th of 2023 is when they did the surgery. And it was 4.5, 5 hours long. I mean, it was, it was something that I would never, and the recovery, I'm thinking, oh, I'll be back to work in a couple of weeks. I mean, the realistic part of me is like, come on, just get up. What are you waiting for?
Mm.
Get up. And,
Because you've always been like that, Carolyn, right? You've always been a fighter. Um,
always.
share with our listeners this afternoon some of your background experience. I know you've shared it with me, so I know from knee high, you've worked on a farm, you've put a graft in. I mean, you've had some amazing jobs, right?
I did. I used to work for the FBI, and I did I did foreign counterintelligence. I was a photographer.
Wow!
Yeah,
Wow!
so
Wow!
I had to get into places that were, you had to think. And I worked in Los Angeles. I was out there. I wanted to go to New York. My orders came in. I went to Los Angeles, and uh the you know the KGB, yes. I mean, I've done, work. I've, foreign, that kind of stuff worked, and I loved it. And I'm like, there's nobody that's gonna stop me. I mean, there's just nothing that's gonna stop me. I'm like, and I wasn't afraid of anything. I was
Yeah,
never
and
afraid.
you sure you chased down bad guys who robbed banks, and
Oh yeah,
you were in the field, man.
yeah.
You were
Eh,
tooting.
and getting your car up to 120 because
Wow.
you're you're trying to chase these guys, and in the middle of summer, you're like sitting there. And because I was not an agent, I was support. So what we would do
Yeah,
is we would go and gather the data.
yeah,
And then one of the things that to me I was most proud of was we weren't too sharp one day. We were a little off our game. And our team lead came out and was really upset with us because we were just like, I can't believe you guys just lost what we were doing. You guys lost it. Well, she came up to us and she split us up, and I think there were 6 or 7 of us. And she said, okay, you know what? And she looked at me and she goes, you're going to Chinatown. I'm looking at her and I'm like, are you out of your freaking mind? Do I look like I fit in? I mean, come on, I'm white. I've got red hair, white skin,
Yeah,
white. Just,
yeah,
and I said, they're going to know immediately. And that was one of the things in Chinatown. It's like, and plus I drove a van, right?
okay, okay.
So they just, and she's like, you, and I was just like, oh, I was so angry at her. I thought, you hag, I was mad because I thought I don't fit in. Send me somewhere else. Well, I actually was so happy because at that point, because I'm not, I'm like, bring it on. I'm like, come on, Rocky or whoever, But I went and I found what we lost in Chinatown.
Wow.
And I mean, this is Los Angeles. And so I got out on the repeater channel for like the whole, like the whole office, the agents, and I'm like, I got them. And I bumper locked those people until I got them back where somebody else could pick it up. And and
Wow.
and so those were things that's why this thing it really makes me mad because I'm
Yeah.
like, you're really impeding my process here.
Come on, man. You're really holding me back.
They
So,
cut me some
yeah,
slack.
come on, get in. So you had the 5 hours surgery. You thought that your recovery would be essential and you'd be back to work in a couple of weeks. What happened, Caroline?
Well, one of the things I did is my aunt had come from Texas. My family's all in Texas, and she came up to take care of me. And I said, "What do you think?" And here I'm sitting there thinking, I'll be back to work in about 2 weeks. That was my goal, right?
Yeah.
It was 2 weeks. And I said, "What do you think?" And she said, "Well, I don't think that's realistic." And I said, "Well, what do you think if I was to get out there on the computer so that I can keep my skills?" Because I didn't want to, I wasn't sure how I was going to be able to use my skills. And that's what I do as my job, which is I do billing, medical billing.
Yeah.
And she said, "I think that's a great idea." And I ran across this it's OKI Language Project. But let me back up first because the
Hmm.
first time I ever actually ran into the founder, his name is Eugene Braverock. And I heard him playing the flute in 2016 and I loved it. I
Oh,
mean, it was amazing for me because when I was a little kid growing up, I used to play the flute, not like he does, but and so anyway, I was out on LinkedIn and they were looking for volunteers to try to help with an auction. And they were auctioning off because what Mr. Braverock does is he goes to the elders. He goes to the elders and he's getting the elders' stories and he's putting them down so that for future generations they have that. So he's giving them a voice.
yeah.
And that's why, and then for me, what I would do is I said, "Hey, can I help you?" And they're like, "Absolutely." Seamus, they never once came back and said, "Your spelling is horrible. Your sentence structure really could use some work." They never did any of that. They welcomed me. So they let me
Oh,
help with their voice.
fabulous.
And so I have been a huge advocate for the OKI Language Project. I encourage, because Mr. Braverock is trying to save something that we need, which is language.
Mm.
And I know from my history that I would do anything to give somebody a voice. And that's all I've ever wanted to do, and to give them the voice. And he gave me a voice on the computer by saying, "Yeah, you can go out there and you can help us if you want to." And it means so much because he travels all around the United States, and he goes up and um, corporate sponsorships, things like that, trying to get people interested so that they can say, "Look, this is a worthwhile project." And can you imagine? One of the things I was going to say too, and I wanted to remember that was really important when I was a kid growing up, and I don't know if it happened with you all over in England or Ireland, but what people used to do here is they would go door to door and they would sell Encyclopedia Britannica books. Did
Yeah.
they do it? Did they
Yeah.
do it there?
Yeah.
If you did that today, a lot of it would be changed. It wouldn't be the same. The history wouldn't be the same. So what Mr. Brave Rock does is he goes and he records it, and then they place it into I think he's working on like a museum so
Mm.
people can have that. So his generation, his ancestors, their voices will always be heard, and their children, and even from somebody that didn't grow up, on a reservation, somebody that didn't have that. But I still think it's an incredible thing that he does, and I'm just somebody that wants to support him, and it means a lot because he's actually giving people a voice. I didn't, I mean, I don't want to say I didn't have a voice when I was going through this because I didn't know how to handle it.
Mm.
But now with that, I just try to, I give back what I can, and I want to make sure that he has every available tool so that he can be, so his journey is successful. So
Yeah.
I'm all about lifting him up, and the OKI Language Project to say, hey, you know what? Check this man's information out. Go out there, take a look at it. He's very talented. He's he's an amazing individual, totally.
Yeah, and I can see you're really passionate. And is this one of the things that has helped you through, Carolyn, in terms of where you find yourself? Because I know you share so beautifully in your story on Rattled Awake, Volume 11, in terms of your own chapter, what happened after the surgery and what turned into a bit of a nightmare for you. Can you take us through some of that?
We 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 as a family thought everything was good in February.
Yeah,
And
February 24.
yeah,
Yeah,
yes, February 24. You're exactly
yeah,
right. And
yeah.
so what we did is I thought, hey, everything's going great. We're we're moving forward, we're doing things. The thing was, Seamus, is that I was lying to myself again because I wasn't going to admit that I was failing. And it got to the place where I I wasn't able to see things correctly. Like when we did the book, when we were working on that, I would type, and then I'd have to sleep for a few hours.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, I'd have to type and then I'd sleep for, hours. And the thing was, is that, I wasn't living. And what happened when we finally, we went to the doctor, and unfortunately we we had a difference of opinions about what was
Yeah.
going on, right? So
Right.
we ended up changing, and,
Okay.
and I'm thankful that we did. So when we went to the other doctor, they did a CAT scan, and what they found out was that the shunt was over shunting. So it was actually taking too much brain fluid out. And it was, pretty much dry. Like 8 millimeters of brain fluid were left in my brain at that point. And this
Oh,
is when this was in it was funny too, because I worked until July 24. On July 8th of 24 was when we ended up in the emergency room, and they said, we've got to reset this. So they had to reset it. But by then my ventricles were, they call them, they're slit-like. So they're so thin. And, and now it's kind of like, we're just, you know, we're we're in between appointments. And I don't believe in, I don't believe in pain meds. So when we go to the emergency room, it's usually what we do is they check, they'll go through and they'll do a series of CTs, and they'll do x-rays, and what they're looking for is to see if how the shunt is performing, and what it's doing. And um in I think it was actually October October 16th of this year, we went to the doctor, and we had three doctors in there, and one of them said, he goes, I have a hypothesis that I believe might help. And he said, let's give this a shot. But what they want to do is they want to shut everything off. So they're going to turn off the shunt. They're going to turn it off completely. Seamus, I knew within 20 minutes that was a big mistake. But I said, you know what? Maybe I'm just trying to get used to it. I couldn't, by the time we got home, my husband had to get me into bed. I couldn't keep my eyes open. I couldn't talk, I couldn't walk, I couldn't do anything because the fluid was just filling up in there. It was just filling up there. So the next day, which I think was the 17th or the 18th of October, they went back and they reset it to a 4. And the 4, it's kind of weird, but the lower the number, the more it pulls, and the higher the number, it goes off. Well, on I think it was this week, and I've lost track of time, but this week I had to have an MRI, and an MRI is a magnet, and that's a magnet in my head.
Mm.
And they had the most incredible people there, and I actually heard the magnet move twice.
Wow.
So I know, right? It's really bizarre, but it moved, and it's funny because you know how the MRI is the round tube, right? So I'm in the tube, and I know on this side of it, I can feel it, and it clicked. It clicked twice. So it went from a 4 down to a 2, which is really bad for me. And so as soon as the MRI was finished, Andy was the rep. He came in, such a sweet man. He came in, I go, oh, Andy, you know what? I'm feeling really bad. And he goes, well, I know, but we got to get you upstairs. So the doctor came in and they had to reset it to the 4.
Wow. Yeah.
But even in that short amount of time, I lost the ability. I lost the ability to function. And Seamus, that's just never been who I am. And I think, the whole mental part of that is trying to reestablish mentally, who are you now? And mentally, I refuse to let it beat me. And so what I do is, I have my off days, obviously. You can't not, but I always try to look, like a sunrise or a sunset, right?
Yeah.
Every day, one day, you wake up and you've got this incredible sunrise, and then at night you have a sunset, and then you just go on. But there's really nobody's ever guaranteed anything. And I think for me, that's got to be part of my lesson that and it's not really about slowing down because I have 2 speeds, right? On and off. I'm on or I'm off. So
Yeah, and what struck me, Caroline, was your approach to, what what could be classed as malpractice in the UK, insofar as the first surgeon that you had injured you in some way, didn't they? Which resulted in the shunt. He can you explain? Did he cut you or nick you, or and that's why you have a shunt now?
well, see, that's an excellent question. Thank you. One of the things that we found out, and it's a variable to the surgery.
Yeah,
So for some reason at the base of my brain, when I don't know where he was, if he was closing out, I don't know, but he nicked it. And
yeah,
that happens, that's a variable. That's a variable that happens with the surgery. Now, the one thing that's interesting is that he kept telling us, he goes, it's going to heal. It's going to heal. It's going to heal. I, I, I it never did, Seamus. I ended up in rehab
yeah,
because, well, for it kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and we've got pictures. It looks like when you see it, it looks like there's two balls that are back there, two heavy duty, like, maybe trailer hitch balls that are back there that were on the neck,
Yeah.
and um, we, we talked to him, we went to him, and he goes, it's going to heal. It just takes time. And then, I believe it was in November when we went to this other hospital, right?
Right.
And this in November, this doctor was like, I guess I had tachycardia, my heart was just so messed up from everything, all of it. And he told me he wasn't going to let me go anywhere. He said, you
Wow.
have to stay here, because he goes, I am not going to let you go. He goes, you're not safe, number one. And so I was in the ER OBS from November 1st until the 7th of 2023. And nobody, absolutely no surgeons, no other neurosurgeons would touch me. And the only way I could look at it was nobody would go play in his sandbox.
Okay.
Because the biggest thing is this is like, well, we don't know what's going to happen if we go in there. It could kill her. So we ended up, they sent me to rehab, because before we went, I would go to the refrigerator and I would open the door and I'm just like, well, what am I supposed to do? You know, I mean, what is it? I no idea. I had no idea what I was supposed to do. Um, I knew I could make Jello, because it was 2 cups of cold water, and if I boiled 2 cups of hot water, I could make Jello. That was it. Well, in rehab, they went through the process of rebuilding, like, let's think about what you're doing. Like, I had to learn how to walk and talk. And we would be in the middle of the, like, kind of like their area where they have like all the people. And I had my physical therapist with me, and I would stop. I was using a walker, and I would stop and I would look at her and I would say, what are we doing? Where are we?
Mm.
I had no idea, Seamus. I mean, just like my total, I mean, if you, I felt so, I was so out. I had no idea. I mean, it was one of the, it was a tough road. It's like, and I kept telling myself, take another hill, take another hill. And, I wanted to come home to be with my dogs and my family. And um in December, we saw the doctor December the 5th, and he was so disrespectful I mean, just blatantly disrespectful. And he looked at me and he told me that I was being too emotional. I was being
Right.
too emotional,
All
right?
right.
So I looked at him and I said, you're damn right I am. This is my brain, right?
Yeah.
And so then I got up and I walked out, but he ordered an MRI and we had it on the 15th of December of 23. December the 19th of 2023, I got a call from his PA and they said, we got to get you into surgery as soon as possible because we're afraid that thing's going to burst.
Okay.
And that was the whole thing. It's like all this time and then now. And before they could even put the shunt in, he drained 6 centimeters off of my brain
Wow.
before he put the shunt in, right? And people, like, there's variables to everything, right? And I work in the medical field and I believe in the doctors. I totally do.
Mm.
And I don't believe in that, people started talking about that other thing, about, I would not do that to somebody, because you know what? Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. So the thing is, nobody is perfect. Absolutely nobody. And I just don't, that's not the way I roll. I just want my life back, right?
Yeah.
And I thought I had it in February 15th, when I went back to work. And then in July, it's like everything, it just kind of fell apart again. And so now we're just trying to figure out how we're going to get through this, because I started messing up at work. I would mess up, and you can't mess up, you can't mess up, right? You can't. And I love my job. I love exactly what I do. And so the thing is that now I'm kind of like one of those airplanes that just waiting for the control tower to say, okay, it's time to take off.
Okay. Okay.
But
So as they would say in airport speak, you're in a holding pattern right now, right?
yeah, yeah,
You're
exactly.
you're on a
Mhm.
holding pattern. Okay. Um, Carolyn, you I think you're amazing. I absolutely think you're amazing. Uh, and you're proof that when things go wrong as they have for you, y- we have a choice to make always, don't we? We can stay down or we can get back up. As you say yourself, we can take another hill, right?
Yeah.
You have taken some hills, my sister, since you've been through this, and I have been honoured and grateful to share this journey with you as I will continue to do. I think your experience, for those who may listen to it, is powerful, absolutely powerful, and it's a testimony to you as an individual for keeping on going with your recovery. What what gets you through, Carolyn? What gets you through? Yeah, I know we spoke about the sunsets and sunrises, and I know you live in a beautiful part of the United States of America, and what gets you through? What is it for you?
It- Having a voice, making sure, getting up in the morning and having that first cup of coffee.
Yeah,
And,
you're right.
that, and then without feeling like I'm overwhelming anybody, I think about Mr. Brave Rock and what he does. And I think about my family back in Texas, and uh, I think about my daughters, and I think about how I just it's kind of like maybe little pebbles in the pond, right? And I just try to think about, okay, we're not really, you're not finishing a painting today, but you're going to get up and you're going to have that great first cup of coffee.
Yeah.
You're going to feed your pups, and hey, maybe you'll do a load of laundry. You know, you and I love the old movies like Creature from the Black Lagoon. The
Mhm.
original.
Yeah.
Um, and I people like you, Seamus, my friend. Do you know that I have thought more about you and this book since I think about I share your story with people that I know, and you mean that, I mean so much to me because I feel like you're part of my soul, and you know that uh when a soul meets another soul, what we have are like our bodies, but our souls, when they meet another soul that has the same kind of compassion,
Yeah.
y- there's a lot of that, and that's what gets me through. I believe ultimately, like, I believe in the Lord, and I believe He's never left me, and I believe I have an opportunity every day. It's a choice, right? It is
It's a
two
choice. Yeah.
choices, up or
Yeah.
down.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're up. And as we have said, together, and as you know, deliver on a daily basis, you've got a mantra that you use, right? And your mantra is, I am,
I am a winner. I
you
am
are a
winning.
winner. You're
And you
winning.
know what? What we talk about the digits, right? 10
Yeah.
digits at least, right?
Yeah.
Every day. Every day.
Yeah.
And I thought about that, and it works, and it's
It
like,
works.
it does.
It
And
works.
it does. And the thing is that you know what? Anything, it's kind of like, I guess maybe that's why we don't have pet skunks, because sometimes a skunk will spray you, right? So you never want to let any of the pewee come into your life.
You do
I
not.
mean, you're going to get it anyway, but the thing is that rise above it. I mean, fly, soar, but never give in. And that's, I would do anything in the world that I could to rise, because I don't believe in quicksand.
Oh, Carolyn, you are rising and you are winning with life, and you know, I'm grateful for you in my life. I'm grateful for the time you've taken this morning. I know it's quite early where you are, in terms of getting up and sharing your story with us this afternoon. I appreciate you, Caroline. I really, really do. I wish you well in terms of your continued recovery. I wish you
Thank you.
well in terms of the OKI Language Project, and I hope that goes to, you know, different levels. And guys, if you're listening this afternoon, go online, check out the OKI Language Project. It's freely available on Google, and it's a really, you know, the information is there on Google, and go and check it out. I think it's vitally important that we ring fence our heritage and our culture, because you know, life moves very fast. It's important to keep those treasured mementos. And Caroline, I have no doubt in my mind, I know you spoke about having a voice. You've definitely shared your voice today,
Thank
and
you, Seamus.
and it's recorded for posterity forevermore. I appreciate you, Caroline. You take care and have a
You,
wonderful day.
you too. I'll see you. Thank you.